Salam, everyone. My name is Omar Amari, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Tiffany Totah. Tiffany is a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 20 years of experience, and through her social media platform, she creates a space for people in our community to seek guidance and support. So, without further ado, Tiffany, welcome. It's truly an honor to have you with us.
Oh my gosh, Omar, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
So just to get into it, like just to get to know you more and for the audience to get to know you more, let's start with a little background for those who might not be familiar with your work. Can you share what led you to become a therapist and what your journey has been like over the past 2 decades?
Quite a journey as I was reflecting on that. So I'll be honest, I never wanted to be a therapist. Uh, Growing up, I've always wanted to be a teacher. And my immigrant parents at the time were very worried about my financial security and influenced me to forget teaching and go into business and being the dutiful be girl I went into human resource management and I did that for about 10 years. What I noticed in that is people were, I would talk to them, I would really provide a lot of really good support for them. And I realized that I wanted to go into helping others. But I went back to teaching. Um, So what I did was, sorry, so let me back up. So after being completely just dissatisfied in my career in human resources for 10 years because I had always wanted to teach or be in the healing arts or be of service to other people, HR wasn't cutting it. So I did take a 3.5 year sabbatical and I started teaching in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I loved it. So returning to the US, of course, old habits die hard. And I went back into human resource management. You go back to what you know. And then again, it left me completely broken. And I think sometimes in life we have to kind of get to that really hard place in order to mobilize change. So it was from there that led me to explore a teaching program. And that was to get my second master's degree in teaching. Well, in the US, as you guys, many of you know, you're required to have to have teaching experience, which I didn't have. So I found myself in a classroom as a teacher's aide. I didn't research. I just said, I need classroom experience. Let me just get this done. I had no idea it was a therapeutic day school, Omar. And it was wild. So it was serving teenagers with emotional health issues. And I had no idea. And the first day on the job, like I saw a clipboard like go flying across the room. And I thought, where am I? This is not the classrooms I grew
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So I began, so, but I was there and I was committed. And the therapist, then I began to collaborate with the therapist in the program. There were two therapists, a licensed clinical social worker and a marriage and family therapist, Jason and Jenny. And they truly were the mentors in my life that led me to this career, this 20 plus career that I have. So the more I began to work with the youth, Jenny and Jason were like, you are a natural at helping regulate emotions, providing support. They were like, forget teaching, you should become a therapist. And they encouraged me to pursue a master's in counseling. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to apply to one graduate program. If I get in, it's meant to be, I will do it. And if not, then I will go back into teaching. Well, sure enough, it was San Francisco State University's Masters of Counseling program, and I got in. And I said, well, maybe this is where I'm meant to be. So that's a long-winded way of saying how I got into the field. Uh, Part of it was happenstance, just being at the right place at the right time. The other part was just doing a whole bunch of things that finally got me to the essence of my natural abilities. And sometimes you have to kind of do a lot of this to go on your path. And so over the last 2 decades, I could pretty much say I've done as much as anyone can possibly do in the field. So I've worked in schools, hospitals, county systems. I have had a private practice for, I guess, um, 17 years in private practice. Working in corporate environments. I've worked with youth, young adults, older adults, men, women of all a variety of mental health diagnoses. So so now currently what I'm doing is I promote and provide workshop culturally responsive workshops. I've had my private practice, so I work with individuals. And then, of course, I have my social media platform, which has gotten quite busy. And I do lives every Wednesday and Sunday promoting mental health topics for our Middle Eastern community. And so that's my career in a nutshell.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, how you went from one profession to another. And I think a lot of people, after doing one thing for so long, would kind of be thrown off or scared to do or like transition into something else. I think it takes a lot of strength to just go into a whole different career. But it sounds like it was coincidental and you just happened to like and it just happened to be natural for you to go this route. And I mean, you've been doing it for so long now. And it sounds like it was a very fulfilling career for you.
Being a marriage and family therapist has been an incredible career, and it's literally changed as I've changed and grown. So when I was single, and working at the county, and you could work the long hours and working with acute populations, and I was dedicated and I loved it. Working with foster youth was probably one of the most. I worked with incarcerated youth, probably some of the most incredible fruitful work I've ever done in my career. And then transitioning into having my daughter, then wanting to be at home, then doing the private practice. So it grows as you grow through your life changes. And now that I'm not quite towards the end of my career, but I'm definitely mid-career, that's where the giving back, the being of service, doing more of the workshops. And of course, I love my private practice, but providing more on a larger scale what I've learned and how I can give back. And I have the
That's,
space and the time to do that now because my daughter's older and things
yeah.
are, um, I don't want to say easier, but let's just say I have more space to really focus on how I can do that in a meaningful and mindful way.
No, that's awesome that you're just giving back at this point. With everything that you've accomplished, everything you've done, you just want to give back to the community, give back to people. And you mentioned change, which is and how things have changed over the years, which is a great transition into the next question I wanted to ask you. So mental health is often like a sensitive topic in our community because of many different reasons, including stigma.
Mhm.
Due to your stigma I mean, due to your tenure, due to how many years you've been in the field, have you seen a shift, whether positive or negative, over the years in how Arabs or Arab families view emotional wellness and like therapy?
Yes, I have seen a definite shift towards the positive where we're talking more about it, and I attribute that to the younger generation who are really contributing to these changes in one, like your organization, in wonderful ways. And it is so inspiring to me to keep doing what I'm doing because the younger generations are being more open and transparent. And in a sense, I don't want to say forcing their parents or their families, but they're saying, we need to take a look at this because the way we've been handling mental health as a community, which is to bury it, hide it, put it away, don't address it, just keep it, we don't see it, has brought up more and more issues within our community. And then the families are like, okay, we can't handle this. We need to go get more support, but it's really the youth that are driving that. So I have seen um, a huge change. Also, I've seen with all the intensity happening in the Middle East now, right, with the
Yeah.
Palestine,
Hmm.
Lebanon, and Yemen, and Iraq, and um, you know, what we're seeing is a drive where people, we weren't doing that great emotionally before all these events. And now we're seeing just a surge where people are not coping well. And so that's where I've also seen more openness to people really looking at their mental health as a result of these external things that have been happening in our world. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that it took that to kind of bring people to look at these things. However, we still have a long way to go in my experience in destigmatizing mental health, particularly around substance use disorders, psychosis, bipolar. They're open more to talk about maybe anxiety and depression. However, some of the other issues like sexual abuse, some of the more challenging and difficult topics, uh, from what I've seen, we're not quite ready to really address those just yet.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. I like how you emphasize the youth as being like the gateway towards like kind of like a renaissance, a mental health renaissance for the Arab community. That's what I'm hopeful for. I also like how you mentioned how, I mean, there's always been like violence and uproar in the Middle East, but now it's especially since it's like peaked, it's such a crucial time for people to take action and to actually address their mental health. So I think it's awesome that you also mentioned that as well.
Yes, that's just one of the things that I've seen. Definitely, the youth will be the drivers of the changes of generational trauma.
Mhm.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, so my next question's this is a very personal question, also a question that I've always pondered, and I think a lot of people probably think to themselves at some point, due to you being a licensed marriage and family therapist, um, you may know this also as just an Arab, but one of the toughest topics to navigate in our culture is divorce. In many ways, it can feel like a double-edged sword. So, like sometimes necessary for a person's well-being, but also it's heavily stigmatized. So you kind of have like two different choices, and you're kind of just stuck in between them. So, from your experience, how do you see this playing out in Arab families, like divorce, the topic of divorce?
Well, as a divorced woman, I can tell you that it is not easy, that there is still a lot of shame and failure beliefs from men and women who decide to divorce. I know I get a lot of feedback from people that women typically will be seen as the problem if the woman divorces, like it's her fault. There's a lot of that. However, in talking to out of men who have divorced, even if it was their choice, they also internalize some of that as a failure in fulfilling cultural obligations and norms around that. So there may also be a lot of pushback from family members to stick it out. So even if you're saying I'm really unhappy, maybe there's significant issues in the marriage, and if you share with your family members, a lot of times because of the cultural expectations and the stigma around divorce, they will say, stick it out, even in cases of intimate partner violence. My sense is that's shifted with the younger generation, drug and alcohol addiction, and severe mental health issues. The family, again, will minimize and have either the husband or the partner um, stick it out, and they will be in these marriages much longer than probably what was healthy for them and any children in the home. I think that I say this reservedly. I think for a lot of Arab families that I've spoken to, they may be okay with their son or daughter uh, divorcing because they have seen the difficulties in the struggle. However, for them, their negative response and lack of support may be more attributed to what would the community think إيش الناس بفكروا, they'll be worried more about the community and the backlash they may receive from the community and the judgment and the criticism. And so that may supersede their support of their children or their adult children who decide to divorce. So, because they may see it as reflecting poor on them, like they were the best. Like, look, your child got divorced. That's on you as a parent. Versus divorce happens, relationships may not have been aligned, things shift, and so I so to answer that, I think each individual in their family needs to recognize that it's going to be hard to divorce and it's hard to stick out a very difficult marriage. So it's just which hard do you want to choose? And you may not get the support that you need. You may feel isolated and alone. And it's going to be important to find those individuals that are going to help you, support you through that. And it may not be family.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent answer. I was also gonna ask you, like what things you can do, like what advice would you give to someone who feels trapped in an unhealthy marriage but fears the cultural backlash? But I think you answered that at the end, where they shouldn't fear it, but they kind of just need to find someone. Is there anything you want to like add on to that?
Yeah, I mean there is going to be fear. I mean, feel your feelings. You're going to have lots of transitions, and there's so many things that you go through, and that's where I say seek guidance and help from a therapist. Uh, that's a good fit that may understand our culture because that's going to be important as well, because it's very hard to navigate divorce even outside of our culture.
Yeah.
And navigating divorce within our culture adds multiple layers, and it's hard to do that alone. And if you can't do that, at least find a support group or a group of friends who may be able, as I mentioned earlier, to guide you through that. The other thing around the fear of the cultural backlash, I always let people know it's temporary. Like it's acute in the moment, and then you and your divorce may be forgotten by the community, and they'll move on to something else. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's like, oh, you're
No.
the talk of the town this week, and then next week it'll be somebody else. So I say that jestfully, but there's still this, like, I have a video on my platform called Arab and Divorce, and it's like you wear this scarlet letter. Do you know this the
Yeah.
scarlet
Yeah.
letter where you're wearing the D of the scarlet letter, and it's up to you to work through your own shame and guilt around failing your parents or failing the culture so that you don't have to own that label. So you could see yourself whole, that not as so and so, been so and so, the divorce, or ibn so and so, he's divorced, but that you can really affirm who you are outside of the cultural label. But that takes work to do, and to create the life that you want and that you desire, and to be free from an unhealthy marriage. I got to tell you, um, even when no one in the community supports you, once you get through the hard stuff, you will feel a freedom. Many people will feel a freedom they never have quite felt before, is what I can say. And even though they judge you, you overcome it by not owning their judgment, and try not to internalize their limitations and focus on your freedom and your peace and the peace of your children if you have any.
Yeah, no, I am. I very much appreciate the answer, and I appreciate you putting in your own input as someone who you said was divorced as well. And I
Mhm.
love that you touched on like reasons for why divorce is stigmatized in that community, whether it's for honor, like upholding an image of a family, or for blame, who to throw the blame on. I think it doesn't just apply to divorce. I think it just applies to relationships in general within our community, because I see that a lot amongst the younger generation where it's like throwing blame on someone else and to be like, perfect and seen as unproblematic. So I'm glad that you also touched on those things as well.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, very much.
So a lot of people struggle with recognizing their own behaviors as problematic, especially when it comes to relationships. So how do you approach helping someone who doesn't acknowledge that they might need to change? I know that's like a difficult question, but like, how could
Yeah.
you help them if they don't
Well,
know they need help?
carefully, carefully. Now, if it depends on the problematic behavior and the individual's readiness for change. So, as I could say, as a clinician, when I do the initial consult with any prospective client, I always tell them, you got to be ready for the change. Otherwise, I'm not the right fit for you. But when you're in a relationship and your partner and you're assessing, like you know your partner needs help, or um, if their behavior is problematic, you cannot, if they're not ready, they're not ready. If they don't see
Yeah,
their behavior as a problem, there's not much you can do about that except say, what am I willing to risk to stay in this? Now, if you have a family member, but if you're in a relationship, any form of intimate partner violence, narcissistic abuse, drug and alcohol addiction, untreated severe mental health issues, um, may require more self-reflection again on what part are you playing in this dynamic by staying in the relationship, making it okay for them, um, continuing not to hold appropriate boundaries, and not allow. So this question is hard for me because I'm a firm believer that each person has autonomy to uh, heal and to move forward. But I also know most people, it takes a lot of work and you will struggle in your relationship with family members, partners, any friends, if you think that you're going to get them to see their behaviors as problematic.
yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think a lot of people like a lot of people that have family members or friends, who have issues but refuse to acknowledge them. It's hard to accept that you can't do anything for them. For a lot of people, it's just about support. It's like just about supporting them, but they feel like they can do more. And I believe personally that you can't change someone unless they acknowledge there's something wrong, and you can't force anyone to go to therapy. Obviously that's something that they have to do on their own, but I think people should know that if someone is open to change or open to therapy or acknowledges that there's something wrong, that it it's good to educate yourself on ways you can help them, like through seeking professional treatment. This way you can guide them rather than force them. I don't like the term like forcing them to pursue therapy or forcing them to seek out like professional treatment. I like to say that you would guide them, or you would just put them in the right direction and let them take baby steps, whether it's just talking to you as a friend or family member. So I think what you said was also very insightful.
Yes, because what we're doing is with our family members is planting seeds. But I'm also a firm believer that who we are can also, in our wellness and our wholeness and in working on ourselves, they also may see that and indirectly be influenced and as a way for them to self-reflect on their own life, or the opposite. Usually they may punish you for living a healthy whole life, but that's for another topic. But yes, um, I
Yeah.
believe, yeah, what you're speaking to, Omar, is like meeting them where they're at, being an active listener, really looking at their readiness, but really finding acceptance that we're not that powerful to impact or influence another person to change. They really have to want it. And for most Middle Eastern families that I've worked with, that's probably the hardest, not just Middle Eastern families, in all fairness, most families, It's one of
Yeah.
the hardest things to get them to accept because it's so painful.
Yeah, no, it's not easy to acknowledge that there's something wrong, but that's the only way you're gonna get better and grow.
Yes, and the only other thing I'll add to that is when you're looking at your own life or you're looking at the family member's life, that it is a spectrum. Like I always look at everything on a spectrum, is how is it impacting their daily functioning, their romantic partnerships, their familial relationships, their employment, their health, both emotional and physical. So looking at the different aspects of life and seeing where the behaviors are causing an issue, and usually you'll see themes. So for yourself to say, okay, how may I myself may benefit from professional help in navigating, let's say, a brother that has substance use, or untreated bipolar or schizophrenia, and all the stressors that may come from that, is for you to manage your own emotional health and find acceptance and stay present so that you could be a better support to your family member.
Yeah, so you're basically saying that did people benefit themselves from getting help, but they also benefit their relationships, whether it's family, significant others, etc.
Well, at a minimum, it'll help them create more capacity to deal with the stressors that are involved with that.
Yeah, I got you. So in our culture, family dynamics play a huge role in like shaping our emotional well-being. Many of us were like raised in environments where certain behaviors like suppressing emotions or avoiding tough conversations were normalized. And how can individuals start breaking these generational cycles and creating healthier relationships?
Such a great question. Uh, Awareness is number one, is and I think it's awareness, self-reflection, the power of the pause. So just taking a time out, because many times in our Arab families, so much of our energy is context switching, school, work, family demands, and then we're spread so thin that in that power of the pause, many times it's to stop, you take a deep breath, and to say what's going on within me, and I cannot emphasize that enough. The other piece is also recognizing your own patterns of behavior. So if you do the awareness and the self-reflection and you take a minute to journal or pause, you may start to see your own patterns of behavior and how you're engaging in problematic behaviors and taking accountability and ownership of that in order to actively shift out of that. You see? And
Yeah,
so the other piece that I think is so key is managing your emotions. And that takes a lot of tools. But again, if you are not aware of what you are feeling, and many times with Arab or with collective cultures, they'll say, Tiffany, I don't even know what I'm feeling. No one's ever asked me. I don't know what's coming up for me. All I know is I'm uncomfortable. I'm engaging in, oh, I don't know, emotional eating, perhaps alcohol abuse, unhealthy patterns in their relationships. And this is happening for a reason, but I don't know why. And so this is where the self-reflection, the kind of looking into certain wounds that happened in growing up, um, and I think the other piece when you're doing all this self-reflection is having a support system, a social support system. Again, we cannot do this alone. That's why I created your organization, creating the community so we can talk about these things. And also people in your life that's going to hold you accountable. I know we don't like to be held accountable, but you need those folks in your life that are going to say, slow down. I
yeah,
know this is what, and then you might get defensive and really prickly, but that's where your self-awareness will come in and say, they're doing this because they care about me and they love me.
yeah.
So that's understanding your own vulnerability, and then identifying uh, your needs, I think is those. So just all those things, I think may help.
Yeah, no, I think people can apply whether it's a couple of things or all those things, and hopefully it'll make a difference. I mean, it's just about taking the steps to doing, like making a change. I think a lot of people are not even putting their foot out the door. So if they can just start, they can,
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I
yeah,
was literally just talking about this with a colleague this morning that for someone to achieve emotional health and wellness, you literally have to do all those things on top of proper nutrition, proper exercise, proper sleep. And in this quick social media 3 minute, 1 minute video of emotional health, like they'll do a tips, 3 tips to do this or 2 tips to do that. And I think that's fine. However, but I think it gives people a false sense of how much work is involved to truly live a fully um, healthy life of wellness. It takes a lot of work.
yeah. So it does encompass everything. I like how you use the analogy of like the physical body. So like a good way of like describing it would be like you can't like exercise and not eat bad or eat good and not exercise and expect to have like this very athletic and muscular build that's very lean. You have to take everything into consideration. It's
And
holistic.
that's right. And you could be exercising and doing all the nutrition, all the right things, sleeping. And yet, if you don't address the stressors in your life, that will have an impact on your physical body. So,
Yeah,
this is where the whole mind body and being, if you ascribe to that mind body connection
yeah,
is so key. And that's where if I work with clients that are anxious, I always let them know we got to take a look at your gut health because a lot of studies are coming out. So you and I can do all the cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. However, if we don't address your gut health, anything we're doing is profoundly limited, or any vitamin deficiencies, or any external stressors. The therapy techniques are only as good as what is happening um, from a lifestyle perspective. And a lot of people do not like to hear that.
yeah. No, physical health affects mental health affects physical health. They're intertwined. So it's not surprising that one would affect the other, of course.
Mhm.
So I remember when I was scrolling through your Instagram, I saw one of your statements. I think it was on a pinned post about how you raised your daughter differently.
Mhm.
Um, I think for a lot of the newer generation parents, they don't want to raise their kids the way their parents raised them. I mean, like the way they disciplined them and things like that.
Mhm.
For parents who want to raise their kids differently, and maybe you meant something different, but for parents who want to raise their kids differently, what are some practical ways they can foster like emotional intelligence at home and break like bad habits that have been like generational?
By being emotionally intelligent themselves, right? Because children model behavior after the parents. So the more healthy and whole, and the more you can really work through your wounds, your own mother wounds, your own father wounds, your own trauma, the more you'll be able to stay present. So when the kid does something and it really inflames you, regardless of what, it's like you're staring at your own childhood in front of you, that you're going to get activated. You can either do what your parents did and keep the generation, or you stop, power of the pause, stop, develop your own emotional intelligence, recognize that the child is just doing what children do, but it's about you regulating your own emotions and how you're going to manage that. Now, in doing so, the child now can have the space to be able to understand that themselves without the parent putting onto them the wound, right? You're passing the wounds down. So now the child can go, oh, mom is emotionally regulated, dad's emotionally regulated. Does it mean you're a perfect parent? By far, no.
Yeah,
Because it's also good for kids to see, like, hey, you've really hit my line, and then you establish the boundaries. But for my daughter, so a lot of my parenting had more to do with my own regulating my own internal state than the actual parenting skills. I also taught her from a very young age mindfulness skills. So when she was, around 3 years old, they start to have really big feelings, and she was having a hard time managing her emotions, which is developmentally very appropriate. Instead of me trying to fix that for her or getting all, upset that she's having big feelings around something, I would tell her, you know, Habibti, go to your room and find your space. It wasn't a timeout. It wasn't anything punishing. It was go find your space. And I would tell her, when you're ready to come out, mommy will be here for you. So that she knew I was still there for her to manage these big feelings, but also her being able to gain her own sense of regulating her emotions and giving her time to feel those feelings. And sometimes I also needed to regulate my emotions as she was finding her space. I too was finding mine. And that's of course, I wanted to make sure she was safe in the room. And so you could hear her like throwing her little stuffed animals or doing some things. And I didn't shame her for that. I didn't make it an issue. I knew that she would come out and she would come out smiling, and I would celebrate her for managing her emotions so that she could get a sense of, like, oh, I did that. I could do that on my own. I think that's so key for children to learn. The beginning of emotional intelligence is for them to find their own space, and the parent taking a step back and not disrupting that for them,
Yeah.
unless it
No,
becomes a safety issue, of course.
well, of course, there's exceptions, but that was
Mhm.
beautifully said. I
Mhm.
can resonate with a lot of what you said. I mean, I'm not a parent, obviously, but things I would want to do as a parent when I have my own kids, things I've observed from parents around me, my own parents. I think it's interesting that you bring up the way that you um talked with your daughter and the way you like addressed her when she would like do things that our kids do. Because a lot of times I feel like parents treat their kids like they're also adults, or like they'll get mad at them for things that are just typical for their age. And that can lead to traumatic experiences for the kid if the parents take disciplinary action. So I think that you did a wonderful job raising your daughter. I think you did an incredible job. Like the things you said, everything is are things that I would want to implement myself as a parent. So that was really nice insight from you.
Oh, oh, good. One thing I can say, and it's not, she and I
Yeah.
we're a very good fit as a mother-daughter. We're a very good fit for many reasons. As a teenager, she's 17 now. I can tell you, in teaching her how to manage her emotions from a very early age and finding her space, she can manage her emotions better than most adults. So, because of the practice and being able to develop her own internal sense of self. But when parents hit the child, shame the child, um, they don't give them an opportunity, or they disrupt it by giving them something. Oh, here, you're crying, you have big feelings. Here, let me give you something. They're disrupting such an important process as an individual to say, I survived those big feelings.
Yeah. No,
Hmm.
a lot of parenting comes from the parent, like you said, and it sounds like you guided her down a good path where she can be very emotionally intelligent herself, and she's able to cope and deal with things on her own, very independent.
But that goes to what I was saying earlier around, but encouraging her to self-reflect, journal her feelings, if journaling or drawing or listening to music, whatever she needed to just be in that space to self-reflect on her actions. And she would journal throughout middle school to write down the difficult moments. But I also encouraged her, so we don't get into that victim mentality, to really express gratitude for the good things that happen, so that she can also, even in some of the harder times in her life, for her to know where there's always something to be grateful for, and getting her in the habit of being in that place of gratitude versus um, lack.
Yeah.
It's also a big one. I think parents can model for their children just being grateful, like, I'm really grateful that we're here today having dinner together. This is really nice. And so that the parent can also model for the kid, even it's in the small things that we could be grateful for. And I think, again, that will build resilience when life gets more challenging.
Yeah, no, I personally believe that a lot of times kids are a reflection of their parents. So if their parents are, well-rounded individuals, very knowledgeable, that the kids tend to be that way themselves.
Hmm. Well, because you're modeling the power of the pause, positive self-talk or neutral messages, and how to self-soothe. So even if I'm dysregulated, I would say, you know what, honey, mommy hasn't eaten. I've been busy all day. I need to go find my space. I need to, and she's like, totally get it, mom. Go do what you got to do. Come back. She tells me the same thing I told her when she was 3.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's
That's a
symbiotic.
beautiful
It's a
thing. Yeah.
process, right? It's not just you parenting them, but it's also them recognizing who you are as an individual, not
No,
healing you.
yeah.
It's your responsibility, but them also recognizing that we co-create together to create harmony in the home.
That's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, those are all the questions I have for you. This has been like a very meaningful conversation, and I know a lot of people are going to benefit from your insights. You have so much to say, and you are so knowledgeable, so experienced, so smart, educated.
Thank
And
you. You're very
just
nice. You're
before
very gracious.
No, of course. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, is there any final advice you'd like to share with those who may be struggling and don't know where to start?
Yes, if you are struggling, especially within our communities where we're hyper independent, please, please, please give yourself permission to ask for help. There is no shame. You are not weak. All the messages you may have received about getting help, I always say, get the help sooner than later. The more you ignore, the more you deny, the more it only gets worse. And so, if you can address it, if you are in college, start with your wellness center. If you have insurance, contact your insurance company. I know that's going to be a long, hard road. I don't want to delude people into thinking like, oh, it's so easy to get a therapist through the insurance company, but ask about the mental health benefits and treatment. If you're employed, a lot of companies, especially the tech companies, ask your company about their EAP program. That's an employee assistance program where you can get 5 to 10 sessions. It's paid for by the company. If you have none of the above, and resources are limited, the beautiful thing about social media, now it won't replace the actual work of therapy, but you can start with going on YouTube and any social media, um, on regulating your emotions, how to regulate your autonomic nervous system. And those may be 2 things I would say you would start. And of course, at the foundation of all of it, proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep are the foundation of all of it. Because if you don't have those things, regulating your emotions and your autonomic nervous system, you get lots of really good videos on how to do that. Um, the other piece that I don't think we talk about enough is I would get a vitamin panel and just get a baseline from a medical perspective, from a physical health perspective. Let's rule out any underlining physical health reasons, is going to be key. And many times with my clients, like, Tiffany, I was surprised I was so vitamin D deficient, or I was so deficient in this particular vitamin. And I said, okay, I'm not a doctor, but let's take a look on working with a nutritionist to see if that may help your emotional health. The other piece if you're struggling, is take a look at the people you surround yourself with. If you are in a toxic relationship, a toxic work environment, a toxic family environment, uh, you struggling, maybe you may be okay, but it's the environment that you place yourself in that may be exacerbating what may be happening. I am a huge advocate of lifestyle and really taking a look at You may be alone for a while, but you calling in people into your life that are going to be supportive and loving, compassionate, and people you could trust to provide you support. The social support is very important. Few other points I think I would add: minimize your screen time. I give all my clients a 3 day social media, like, just if you're anxious or you're depressed, take 3 days if you can and just get off of the doom scrolling and the social media and restore yourself with activities you love and you enjoy. My sense is if you just start there, you'll start to feel a little bit better. Um, and then you can also educate yourself on what you may be struggling with or what you think you may be struggling with. Education goes a long way, knowledge goes a long way. You won't feel so alone. There may be some uh, practical things you can do based on that education to help uplift you and get the support that you need with all the things I mentioned above.
Oh, I appreciate all that insight. I think it's awesome that you gave so many like different options or different ways that people can start. And I think that with so many different ways that people can start to get help or better themselves, I don't see why anyone can't start.
Nowadays, um, with the vast amount of information on mental health, but you want to have good quality mental health information. So use discernment around that.
Yeah,
Uh, yes, I absolutely think even if you don't have the financial resources to go see a therapist, with dedicated every day, and I don't say that, I say every day, you create awareness, you do these building blocks every day, and sometimes all day long, right, to reprogram whatever negative limiting beliefs you may have. You can move through um, some challenging things in your life. But if you have more acute symptoms happening, I would really encourage you to um, uh, contact your insurance, like, just, and sometimes I know we say, oh, I can't afford it. And if you were to really look at some of the, I know for students it could be really really hard. There's some therapists that will do sliding fee scale, so take a look at your community resources as well, and they may be very helpful to
I
provide that
appreciate
for
that.
you.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, you can. uh, it's wonderful. Healing, being on the healing journey is wonderful.
It is.
Give it to yourself. Again, give yourself permission to create the life that you want.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany,
Yeah,
for your
thank
time and for the incredible work that you
you
do.
for fun.
Where can people find you, like to follow your content or seek resources?
Yes, you're more than welcome to find me on all social media platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, under Tiffany Toda, MFT. And I do lives every Wednesday and Sunday. So Wadih Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific. And Sundays is Sitti Sunday, and that is 10 a.m. Pacific. And I answer questions that you may have, and I present a mental health topic within our cultural context. So you can join me every Wednesday and Sunday. And of course, you can be a part of the community through any of those social media platforms.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tiffany. Take care. Be
Thank
well.
you so much. I really appreciate your time.